Ladies and gentlemen, today is a quick update. We're discussing the weekly candle close, which has been absolutely sensational for Bitcoin. A great close. Couldn't have asked for anything that much better. We are still in a precarious position on the weekly chart RSI, but that is a problem for another day. Ethereum triangle, Bitcoin dominance, and USDT dominance are also other topics we're discussing today. We'll get into all of that in a second, and we'll come to a concise conclusion about where we think Bitcoin will go, what the direction for Bitcoin will be. But before we get into that, the BingX and BitGet exchanges need to be discussed here. These exchanges are my referred exchanges on this YouTube channel. I've got my referral links down below, my affiliate links below. So click on those links, sign up to the exchanges. You'll get access to 15% trading fee discounts for life exclusively with my links. These are very good exchanges. They've never been hacked before. They've got very low trading fees, so check them out down below. Let's get into the content here. Quick one today. Not going to waste your time. Not a massive amount of things have occurred, but something very, very, very important has happened. And that is the weekly candle close. Now, the biggest threat on Bitcoin, as I made very clear in my prior videos, over the last week was the weekly candle. We had the weekly candle hovering below this red line right here, which is a major support level on the weekly chart. What we could actually see was that that red level stems back from 2021 October, which was the all-time high Bitcoin placed in the last bull market. We extend that level right across, and what do we see? We see that Bitcoin found very strong weekly candle resistance on this weekly candle close right here, and on a second weekly candle close right here, before breaching it to the upside. We saw a very good weekly candle close to end off the month of March, but then we were hovering below that level, threatening to break back down below it, which would have basically made this entire move a fake out and basically meant that Bitcoin would see a more extensive correction of a downside, looking at targets like 58K, 53K, things like that. Luckily, Bitcoin was able to salvage that weekly candle close. It came back above 69K and it's closed its candle right above 69K, and we found temporary support in that price region. So we really couldn't have asked for much of a better weekly candle close. Obviously, we could have, I mean, realistically, yeah, we could have gotten above 74K, but that was unrealistic in the first place. The fact of the matter is we've kind of avoided catastrophe on the weekly chart, so Bitcoin has bought itself some more time. Doesn't necessarily mean it's completely in the clear, but it certainly means we're in a good position for now. One of the things on the weekly chart that is slightly concerning me still is the ascending wedge, which is in yellow. Let me make this line white so you can see what I'm referring to right here. This yellow structure right here, the ascending wedge formation on the weekly chart, is not exactly reassuring, but it is a problem for another day in a sense, because we have seen many, many times, for example, on the RSI, where the RSI price action and the actual price action are not necessarily correlated in the way they move. So for example, you can have deviations, they're called divergences, where you have the price moving higher, having higher highs, and the RSI having higher lows. So we could realistically have a situation where our price could continue to move upwards while we remain within the very small bounds of this ascending wedge for a decent period of time. But eventually this ascending wedge will break to the downside. The question is, when will it break? You know, will we make it to 80K, 85K before it breaks to downside, in which case the correction would only take us back down to where we are right now? Or will it break right now and we go downwards to the 50K, 58K region again? That's the question. And that's why I say it's kind of a problem for another day. It is, however, a problem that needs to be faced eventually. There is a weekly ascending wedge on the RSI. That's not something we can just ignore. And yeah, that will need to be faced eventually. But right now, the good news is we don't have to face it currently, because we've just seen a very good weekly candle close holding support in that 69K region. So this really is a problem for another day. Looking back at previous occurrences when we had these kind of structures in the RSI, we really don't have to look very far. You look at this, I'll make it pink so you can see it. You look at this pink line on the left-hand side of the screen here. That is 2020. What you can see is we had a support line on the weekly chart RSI. It broke to the downside at around February 15th. By the time it broke to the downside, you can even see here that February 15th, it broke to the downside, and we continue moving upwards. We went from 57K all the way to 69K, or 65K, I should say, before that RSI breakdown took effect. But eventually, yeah, it did take effect, and it was one of the causing factors that led to that drop there all the way down to the 29K region. So the weekly chart RSI is something that we can't really mess around with. It is a very major indicator with very high level of importance. So when we do see that breakout, because again, it is a when rather than an if, it will be interesting to see where Bitcoin goes. Will it go downwards, or will it delay that drop until a few weeks later or a few months later and then drop downwards? Because again, we can see those massive discrepancies in the price action between the RSI and the actual price movement. So moving forward to another topic, I think we've done our fair share of analysis here on the weekly chart. just basically analyzing that was a great weekly candle close. Weekly chart RSI is still a threat that needs to be monitored. We can move into other things that have occurred. For example, we have a ascending, or not an ascending triangle, but an actual bullish pennant formation or bullish symmetrical triangle formation, depending on the time frame you're really discussing here. Some people say pennant formations can only last up to a month. This has been basically just over a month, so I guess it would qualify as a symmetrical triangle formation, and that is just edged up to the upside here. We've just seen a preliminary short-term breakout there of that bullish symmetrical triangle formation, so it's good to see. That will be targeting all-time highs on Bitcoin, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Bitcoin does make a move upwards to break that 74K region soon, or at least retest it, and then we can go from there. And then moving forward, we've got Ethereum in the exact same scenario, except Ethereum hasn't actually broken its triangle yet. So perhaps if you really wanted to be confident in this Bitcoin breakout, you'd also be waiting for Ethereum to do the same thing. Because generally speaking, when you have, Bitcoin and Ethereum actually work hand in hand a lot of the time. If Bitcoin's breaking out, but Ethereum's still at resistance, you can actually see that Bitcoin breakout be ruined. And if Ethereum's breaking out, Bitcoin's still at resistance, you can see the Ethereum breakout be ruined. So I think for absolute confirmation of this breakout targeting all-time highs within the next few days, you'd want to be seeing Ethereum doing the same thing. Hasn't quite done that yet, but the fact that Bitcoin's moved in itself is a very good sign. So it certainly is the likely scenario. But yeah, just keep an eye on Ethereum. Bitcoin right now looks very good. Ethereum itself as well, even though it hasn't broken the structure is undeniably good. So a couple good things going on here. We also saw a double bottom formation on Ethereum, which is indicative of a break to the upside. And we've got a nice little neckline there at 36.4K, or 3,600, 3.6K. Breaking that neckline will be a very interesting move to the upside there for Ethereum to around the 4.1K region. Very simple stuff here. Just normal breakouts across the board. Again, Ethereum's edging towards it. Hasn't quite done it yet, but it's getting there. And then we've got things like the Bitcoin dominance chart and the USDT dominance chart showing us very clearly, as per Bitcoin dominance chart, facing a resistance line from 8 years ago right now, just touching it currently, showing us very clearly the market is bound for another significant impulse very shortly, right? You don't see charts like this come to such a major point at an 8-year resistance line if the market is not going to be moving shortly. Same thing with USDT.D, the USDT dominance chart, at a very strong 5-year-long support line, just touching it right now. Again, you don't see these major touches on these major lines that have been around for a long period of time if the whole market isn't about to do something big. Now, you could argue, oh, that could be a big move to the downside, and it certainly could, but right now, if we're looking at the evidence we have, the preliminary evidence, I mean, Bitcoin's breaking upwards, Ethereum is close to breaking upwards, Bitcoin's weekly chart just saw an excellent close. We haven't broke down the weekly chart RSI yet. What we see here is multiple bullish confirmations and no real bearish confirmations. So I would say that the chart's actually leaning quite bullish right now. I would say the price action we've seen over the last couple of days is pretty good stuff. And it's interesting, right? Because throughout the entire, basically last few weeks, I'd say, last 3 or 4 weeks, the ETF volume has been quite low. If we go to a volume, that's not actually the volume chart, we'll go to a volume, here we go, ETF volumes being quite low, descending quite rapidly for the last month or so. So it's not really ETF inflows that have been driving this price action, which is very interesting because if we looked back in the early March, late all the way pretty much from late February to late March. We look at the price action that occurred on Bitcoin from late February to late March. We can see right here, this is late February, okay, all the way through to late March, basically right there. That was all driven by ETF inflows very directly. The ETF inflows from this period of time that I've just circled to right now have basically quartered, essentially, or at least they're like 30% of what they were. So right now, this little bullish surge we're seeing is not really driven by the ETF volume per se. It's more driven by regular market price action. And I think it's also worth noting that the ETF narrative, and this is what I've mentioned a few times on this channel, just to kind of recap. Obviously, the reality of ETFs, the reality of the Bitcoin spot ETFs and the inflows that are coming in due to that, the buy orders that are coming in due to that, are a very major bullish effect on the price action. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But it's also very important to note the difference between the reality of the ETFs and the buying that causes, and the narrative of the ETF buying and the buying that causes. Now, don't get tripped up in my words here. I'm going to say it as clearly as I can. It's quite hard to say. The price moves upwards, okay, for 2 reasons. One of them is the ETF buying, the buying that occurs through ETF. And then one of them is, another one of them is the people who buy because of the ETF buying, okay? So there's people buying through the ETFs, which is the reality driving the price upwards, and there's people buying because of ETFs, but not through them, which is the narrative that is driving Bitcoin upwards as well. Right now, the reality, the ETF buying itself is slowing down, and it could pick back up. It certainly could. It's been a slow time in the market, but look, let's just assume that it's slowing down. That means the reality is dying down. And if the reality dies down, the narrative could also die down as well. So what I'm saying is this ETF reality and narrative, they're very good. It's very bullish, cool. It's mostly going to lead to impulses to the upside. That's for sure, at least now. It certainly could extrapolate downside price action as well, or exacerbate downside price action as well. But for the time being, it's certainly looking like it's going to be positive to the Bitcoin price for the foreseeable future. But it's important to note that this narrative won't stay fresh and new forever. Eventually people are going to move on. They're going to talk about other things. And so the narrative buying is going to slow down whether or not the reality buying will or not. So the point I'm trying to make is the ETF narrative and reality won't be as strong as it is now forever. Yeah, I think that's a pretty self-explanatory point. I don't really know how you could disagree with that, but I just thought I'd mention it. I mean, unless we see a situation in which exchanges are banned, in which case, obviously, that's a third-party factor that would obviously drive ETF volume to the upside, but I'm obviously not talking about that. So just to recap very, very quickly here, very good movements on the short-term charts. The weekly candles really what gave the short-term charts the opportunity to do that. You can see very clearly here, the weekly candle closed on this blue circle. On that blue circle, we flipped short-term support, and when that weekly candle closed, it bought Bitcoin enough momentum to move to the upside above this bullish symmetrical triangle formation. So it's really the weekly chart that has led to these breakouts here. Just goes to show that these longer time frame charts, they don't get looked at quite as much, but they can be very, very, very relevant. And we've seen that over and over again over the past couple months here. Great news in the weekly chart. Good candle close. Is still a small developing threat with that ascending wedge formation. It's actually quite a large developing threat, but given the fact that there are discrepancies between what happens on the RSI and the price chart, it could be an avoidable catastrophe even when we do see the breakdown. But right now, we've bought ourselves some more time in that regard, so it's good to see. Certainly looking macro bullish for Bitcoin right now, and even the short-term charts are leaning bullish currently. So it's good to see. Guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Check out, again, the BitGet and BingX exchanges, and then go ahead and check out the Crypto Academy's bull market sale. Myself and MegaWell Crypto developed this course in 2022. All the information in it is still very relevant, so you can check it out. It's teaching people how to trade, teaching people how to analyze the charts, how to do market psychology effectively so you don't get caught up in your emotions. All of this stuff is on the course, and you can find all the information on the website as well. And then finally, the VIP group on Telegram. I trade altcoins 3 to 4 times a week on VIP. Actually, more like 4 to 5 times a week these days on the VIP. We've just released our trading results for Q1 2024. We had a 77.51% win rate. Absolutely exceptional. 25 wins and 9 losses. So that's good to see there. Check it out if you're interested in trading altcoins on Telegram. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. All the links are down below. Referral links, Crypto Academy link, and VIP link. Have a good one.